Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Austen here with head coach Brad Stevens to recap this season and take a little bit of a look into the future for the Boston Celtics. Coach, I know this is your first year in the NBA coaching in the books. Let's put that on the back burner of what you've learned. And I'm just curious if there was a specific moment where you were able to just soak in this experience and say, hey, I'm the head coach of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, probably not a singular moment. There were a lot of little moments that made you think that, and you know, some of those in TD Garden as the just the environment and the fans and walking out on the court and walking by Tommy Heinsohn or seeing John Havlicek down on our practice court, or some of the greats being there with Bill Russell's night. Those moments all stand out. But as far as the season goes and everything else, I think that, there were tons of learning moments, and there were tons of moments that I think that we'll be able to use in the future to hopefully get over the hump where we might have come up a little bit short in the past.
And obviously there are many differences in the game of NBA versus college. How would you describe the style of play in this league?
Well, the 24-second shot clock and the 48 minutes, I tell you, the extra 8 minutes is a big deal, because it's 8 more minutes that, we've talked about this, that Kevin Durant can touch the ball. It's 8 more minutes that LeBron James can touch the ball. And that's great when those guys are the guys that you're going to, right, to touch the ball. And I think that makes a huge impact on the game. That's a big change. The level of execution that you have to have offensively in critical moments is high. The level of defensive execution you have to have. And then it's funny, it's no different than college basketball or high school basketball from the standpoint that you can break all this stuff down inside and out. And it always comes down to, did you give up a few transition baskets? Did you make a few effort plays? Did you do the details better than the other team? And especially when your margin's a little bit lower, you've got to be great in the details all the time.
How long did it take you to adjust to those changes? Game 10, game 76,
I don't know.
Still adjusting?
It's a good question. No, I felt pretty good in the games as far as knowing the game, managing the game, the substitutions of the game, all of those types of things. I think the biggest thing for me going into the year was I didn't know exactly who was going to play in what spots, and so that, coupled with the fact of learning the new game, was probably a little bit of a shock to the system. But I do think that that stuff probably ironed itself out quicker than everything else, because basketball is basketball at some point.
Obviously, there's a lot more games in the NBA, but would you say there's more preparation or less preparation needed going into these games in this league?
Well, I think there's more preparation needed in a lot less time, so you have a lot less preparation that you have to condense what's important. So from a player's standpoint, if you played the night before in Milwaukee and you're coming back to Boston to play, and you got in at 3 in the morning and you sleep till noon, you get up, have a little bit to eat, and you come over to the gym at 4:45, you're not going to be able to go through every set Milwaukee runs. You're going to have to figure out what's important, delve down into that, and then you're going to have to do your stuff well. And so as you get into the playoffs and as you play a team multiple times, now you're really trying to make changes and make tweaks. But for the most part, you've got to be great in your stuff, and then you've got to prepare it with the right amount versus the entire amount.
You said last night that someone told you in the NBA that you won't be the best your first year, but you will be much better your second year. How was that for you to take? Did you want to prove them wrong, or is it more clear now that you have a season in the books?
And I said this last night. Ron Adams told me he's been in the NBA for 22 years, and if he got hired to coach a high school team, he's not sure that he would have a great pulse on the 32-minute clock with no shot clock. It's just different, the way, the style of play, and then you add on top of that the level of players. So I think that that is the case, Emily. But I also think that my second year as a college head coach, I was a heck of a lot better than my first. My 6 years as a college head coach, I was a heck of a lot better than my first. And I think that's just something that over time, hopefully we're all growing and getting better. I mean, that's ultimately what we want.
Obviously, it's been difficult to go through this rebuilding process. Was Danny Ainge in your ear, just telling you, "Be patient, Brad, be patient"? Or how was your relationship kind of?
Yeah, I mean, he was very supportive. He knew, and really, I thought he understood how much time our assistants were spending on getting guys better, and how much time we were spending on getting ready for each game and attacking each game. And it's not easy for anybody in this business to be patient, and I get that. From my standpoint, I'm not a very patient person to begin with, but I never really looked at it, Emily, as rebuilding. I looked at it as, this is our game tonight, this is our task, this is how we have our best chance of winning tonight's game. And I think that's the way we all approached it. And as a result, certainly you can look back on it and say, obviously it's a rebuilding year, but you never felt that way in the middle of it.
You say that you're such a not a patient person, but you have such a calm presence. Every guy that we talked to in the locker room after last night's game says you've just had a positive attitude this entire season. Has it been challenging for you to maintain that attitude?
Yeah, it has. But, it's interesting. I've always prided myself on not being consumed by the results, but rather the approach and by how much we're getting out of this experience from a growth standpoint. I've kind of changed that in the last 5 or 6 years of my life, and I feel like it's given me good perspective on handling tough times, and also, not getting too high on the good times. And, at the end of the day, it's a job to do, and right when you let off the gas, you're going to get pounded. And so this is a tough league, and it's tough to win a game, and every game you've got to bring it, or else you're going to get beaten by the bad teams, you're going to get drubbed by the good teams. And so, that's the things that we've got to get better and we learn, but it's a daily process of growth to me.
This team had a little bit of difficulty closing out games this season. What have you learned about what it takes to finish a game? I mean, how many games came down to the final few possessions or the final 5 minutes?
And you always go through the games, and as a coach, you always say we should have won that. Well, in reality, we could have won that. And in a lot of those games, we were down late and trying to come back. No, but there's no doubt execution's critically important. Guys staying poised in those situations critically important. I think the biggest thing that I take away from a physical aspect is we've got to get stronger and more physical as a team, because in those moments, that ratchets up a notch, defensively and offensively. And I think that's something that we have a young team that should happen.
How much time will you spend reflecting on this season versus starting to prepare for next season in the draft and everything?
It'll be a good mixture of both. I mean, most of my time, Emily, I haven't thought one day about the draft, and I probably won't think a day about the draft until we get into May. Right now, my time will be decompressing on, refreshing a little bit, but then decompressing on what we can do better.
Danny Ainge said that Rajon Rondo has the potential to have his career season next year. Would you agree with that? And how has it been like getting to know Rondo?
Well, I think I do agree with that. I think that there's a great combination here right now, that he came back from injury, was not probably 100% the entire year. We saw glimpses of it late in his time back, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because of that. And that's a good combination for a good player. Sometimes when you're a really good player, you think things are going to come easy. And, but when you've had an experience like he's had, I would guess that's going to be a heck of a lot of fuel moving forward into next year. And he's been good to coach, and I think he will continue to be good to coach because, I think we both share that chip on our shoulder right now.
There were a lot of young guys to develop on this team this season. Did anyone impress or surprise you the most?
No, I don't think anyone. Well, I say this. I think a lot of people did a lot of good things. I think that our consistency was our biggest factor probably, but I think the addition of Chris Johnson was really good. And and I think back, here's a guy that was in the NBDL, played a 10-day stint last year in the NBA, but for the most part, this was his first real NBA opportunity, and he comes in his third game just goes nuts against Miami and makes a bunch of shots and just shows no back down. He just being tough, doing his job every day, likes to compete. Yesterday, late in the game, he's diving all over the place, tying a guy up with a minute to go. Guys like that with that kind of mindset, they don't surprise you, but they stand out.
Coach, you have a lot on your plate that you're juggling, being a dad, a husband, a head coach in the NBA. How do you balance all of those things?
Well, the first two are more important. The third one gets a lot more attention, and so you try to do all three well. And I think that one of the things that we have a pretty good balance of is we try to work really hard to make this the best it can be, but when I'm not, that's where I am. And I spend a lot of time at home, and I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks here where at 5 o'clock we'll just go out and we'll play in the backyard, do something like that.
Do you have any special summer plans or vacations set with your family, other than obviously watching what Frozen with your daughter for the 20,000th and one?
It would be her 18,000th time. I haven't sat down with her yet. I don't have a ton of summer plans, and we try to keep them pretty easy. But we'll go through the draft, and then we'll go to summer league, and then we'll take some time as a family and get away. But one of the things that we're going to try to do is I'm going to try to get my bearings on this area. I still, almost everywhere I drive, because I haven't been very many places with GPS on. So I'd like to get out of the GPS realm by the start of next year.
Is there anywhere specific that you want to see in Boston or that you've heard about to get more familiar with the city?
Well, obviously all of the different areas along the water sound great. I want to visit every restaurant that I've been told is great, because I've got a list of 30 or 40. And I want to get more used to, again, just kind of figuring out where I'm going without the help of GPS. But I'm looking forward to and then I'm going to be at a few Red Sox games because I enjoy those. Those are fun. And
you have to take your family on the Freedom Trail. It's like such a great experience.
That's what I hear.
The Boston Tea Party,
That's
little history, so you'll have to do that. Well, we're glad to have you here in Boston. Brad Stevens, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck this summer into next season. Be sure to stay updated right here on Celtics.com for all of the team's latest.